That was quite possibly the greatest episode of House of the Dragon. And there's only been like 12 episodes, quite literally. Like, I don't know what it was. A combination with the writing, with the direction, the shout out to canon. I don't know. It was a perfect combination of everything. I really enjoyed House of the Dragon Season 2, Episode 2. And in this video, I'm going to discuss some of my favorite things. If you want a full out breakdown, like we're talking 3 hours plus, click the link down below in the description, because I just did one of those last night, right after having watched the episode, and you get like a live reaction, and I'd go way more in depth in that live stream than I'm about to do in this video. But please, before I jump into any of that, do me a massive favor. If you're a fan of this video after you watched it, please slap a like on it. Like goal is going to be 420. Get it? Also, if you're a really big fan of my channel and you want to take it a step further, please subscribe to me. That's the best thing you could ever do for me or anybody else you're a fan of here on YouTube. Alright, so I've seen the episode literally a few times now. I watched it again after my stream, went to bed, woke up, went for a run, and then literally put it on while I was running. I just listened to the audio for my morning run. It's amazing. I love this episode in particular because I was explaining it, and I probably explained it better in my live stream last night, so please go watch that. I know I just said that, but I'm going to ask you again to go watch it, right? It made me think of the earlier seasons of Game of Thrones, like the feeling that I got from watching Game of Thrones when I first seen it, right? I had never read the books, so that feeling of mystery of like anything could happen, anything's possible. This show is so crazy, we don't know what's coming next, right? And that's not what makes it good, but it is in part is the unpredictability of me not having known anything about the canon, right? And then being completely and utterly surprised when things like, I don't know, Jon Snow died. Like, I literally had a mental breakdown when Jon Snow was stabbed to death. So this show, House of the Dragon, right, I'm coming into it different. I've read the A Song of Ice and Fire's book series. I've lost count. I'm not even exaggerating. I've lost count of how many times I've read it. I used to keep track on Twitter, but I hadn't done a tweet about how many times I've read it in like a year, so I literally lost track, right? But this episode in general just reminded me of that mystery of like, oh, I can trust these writers a lot more than I had been after episode 1. Like, they kind of know what they're doing with the canon in the sense that they know how to treat book readers well, because we get shout outs like a direct line drop from the books, like literally, my new hand is a steel fist. I was jumping for joy when I heard that, and it wasn't even like a super spectacular scene. It's like, that just made me happy. That was a line from the book that I read that made me want to watch this show, and it was included in the show, and that's always gonna, things like that are always gonna make me happy, right? But that's not necessarily why this episode was so great for House of the Dragon, and I think it ranks up there with episodes like Battle of the Bastards, Beyond the Wall. The writing for that was crazy, but that episode in general was really good, right? I enjoyed it. Daenerys going to go save the lives of Jon Snow, who's going to kill her, right? But it ranks up there with Thrones episodes, with like top Thrones episodes, so that's amazing. But let's see, some of the things I want to mention in this video. Number 1, Daeron literally gets name drop like after Sir Otto has moved his hand. By the way, shout out to Rhys Ifans. That dude murdered this episode with these scenes. He's basically surrounded by idiots, morons, and idiots. He reminded me very much of Dennis from It's Always Sunny, when Dennis is freaking out on the idiots that surround him, idiots and morons. It was a very Dennis-esque freak out. It was awesome. But yeah, shout out to Rhys. But literally what happens is Aegon removes him as Hand of the King, right? And then makes Cole as Hand of the King, and he says, my new hand is a steel fist. And then also there's a conversation that happens that's directly tied to that. Sir Alicent and Otto talk with each other, and he says, get this, he says, you have another son that is more likely to take direction, Daeron. He's in Old Town, and he will help us in the coming weeks. They literally said Daeron's coming in a few weeks. Like, they knew that we were going to be all over day butts about Daeron. Now, if you're unaware, right, you don't really know who Daeron is. Obviously, Alicent has another son with Viserys, right? And he's completely removed from King's Landing. That's the big thing that you need to know about him. If you want a full in-depth breakdown, I talked about him for like 25 minutes last night in my live stream. So please, once again, go watch that, right? But the big thing you need to know about his character is 3 big things, right? 1, he's completely removed from King's Landing, so he's utterly uninfluenced by the politics and the betrayals and the conniving that happens in King's Landing because he grew up in Old Town, right? 2, he's young, so he's much more willing to please his elders in the sense that he's probably going to do whatever he's told, and he's going to be innocent in that he's just doing what he's told, right? So he's fighting for what is potentially the wrong side on the Greens, but he's literally just doing what he's told, so that makes him innocent. and he's young, and he rides this dragon to Sauron, who's this pink and blue cobalt copper queen, and the dragon's gonna look amazing. And he shows up, and he's dubbed as Daeron the Daring in the moments he shows up, where basically the Greens are being greatly overwhelmed. Daeron shows up on his dragon, pushes back the Black's forces, saves his uncle, and he's ended up dubbed as a knight in that battle, and he's named Daeron the Daring, right? But he's coming in the literal weeks. That's amazing. You all let me know how excited you are down below in the comment section. The next thing I want to discuss, I actually had to push this to number 2 because I felt like it would take up a massive chunk of the video. But just know that I think that the Cargill Bros duel is amazing. The choreography and the epicness isn't like the same level as, say, Clegane Bowl 2.0, right? Not Clegane Bowl 1, but because this fight scene was definitely better than Clegane Bowl 1. That happened in Game of Thrones Season 1, right? But Clegane Bowl 2 had all that hype behind it. It was kind of, it felt a little forced, right? Because remember, Sandor's moving through the Red Keep, and he just so happens to come across his brother, and it's like, yeah, that's like who he was looking for. But also, he made a complete arc and a turnaround from like moving past that. He doesn't just want to kill his brother. He's like wants to do the right thing. But anyway, this fight between the Cargill brothers is just, it's so emotional. Like, I felt more of an emotional connection to Eric and Arik than I did to Jaehaerys. And to be completely honest, we only spent like 1 episode, 2 scenes with Jaehaerys, and we spent a lot more time with the Cargill bros. But the way that their duel was written, or the way that their scenes were written, how we've spent much more time with them in the last 2 episodes, and then obviously we knew this was coming. We knew something was going to happen because they had episode 9, that scene of trying to find King Aegon. And then once Eric found out what Aegon was about, he decided to go over to the Blacks. And remember, the show made it so that he's the one who takes Rhaenyra's crown from King's Landing to Dragonstone, as opposed to in the books, it's Sir Steffan Darkling, right? And then later on, what happens with Sir Steffan Darkling is he tries to mount the dragon and he ends up getting killed, right? He gets his arm ripped off and he dies, or he just basically gets eaten, right? But they gave that role to Sir Eric to make this more prominent of a scene when when him and his brother fight to the death. Now, I will say this, and there's still some debate for it, because I literally voice messaged the actor Elliot Tittenser, who plays the character on screen. Him and his brother Luke follow me on Instagram. That's freaking amazing. I know I've said that in every video for the past 3 years, but I just want to get that point across. These dudes follow me because they like my videos on YouTube, so that's awesome. But anyway, I messaged him last night, and of course, his premiere night, you know, he was busy. He sent me a message this morning, and he said he's on his way back up north, and he's gonna he'll send me a proper message when he gets home and let me know if it was him or his brother Arik that survived the fight and then ultimately fell on his own sword. He's gonna let me know. At the time of recording this video, I haven't gotten that follow-up message from him, but I think it's pretty clear that it looks like to me, and I thought this initially last night in the stream. Again, go click the link down below in the description and go watch that. But I think what happens was Arik, right, so his brother, the one who fights for the Greens, is the one who actually wins the fight and then falls on his own sword, because initially Eric is cut in the leg, right, and then when Eric is on top, Arik grabs his wound and pulls him to the ground, and then from that point forward, Eric is the one who's controlling the fight. He gut punches his brother Eric 2 or 3 times with a sword in the stomach. So he stabbed in the gut, and then that's when Eric dies. But then Arik survives, right, and then pulls out his sword and dies. That's the only thing that makes sense, because Eric, in my opinion at least, wouldn't feel guilty enough to having killed his brother, because he kind of knew it was going to come to that when his brother made the decision to stay with the Greens and he made the decision to go with the Blacks. He knew that was ultimately going to happen. I feel like it was Arik who felt guilty for killing his own brother and then betraying Rhaenyra. That's why he specifically says, "I'm sorry, Rhaenyra," you know what I mean, and then does it. So I'll find out. I'm pretty sure Elliot is probably talking with the people at HBO to ask if they can reveal that. But it was just an amazing scene. I loved it so much. You all let me know what you think down below in the comment section. I think I'm obviously sad that the 2 of them are no longer part of the show, but I think there's a possibility that they can come back. All they gotta do is shave their heads and shave their beard, and they can have a role in Dunk and Egg. It'd be dope if they played a Targaryen. Can you imagine? That'd be so cool. The next thing I want to discuss, like I said, let me know what you guys thought of the duel down below in the comment section. I thought the choreography was awesome. I thought the kick that Arik gave Eric in the head was dope. It was like from a seated position, but he kind of started to crab walk, and then he kicked him in the face. That was dope. I bet you there was a few different versions of that fight, and I hope we get another extended scene or an extended version of it in the deleted scenes when the DVDs come out. The next thing I want to discuss is Rhaenyra and Damon's relationship. I don't spend too much time on this because honestly, it's up in the air, right? Like in canon, we know that Damon is ultimately one of the most loyal individuals to Rhaenyra in her camp. Yes, he makes questionable decisions. It seems like the show is going the route that Damon hasn't necessarily learned from the mistakes of his youth and his relationships with Varys and Rhaenyra in the past. He hasn't really learned from that. But also, it's wartime and he needs to be doing something. He's got to put the demons at rest, so to speak, in his head, right? Like that's how I was. Like if I don't do something physical first thing in the morning, I'm going to be anxious all day. I'm going to be mean to the people around me. I need to go and get out and do things so that I can get out of my own head. Damon's that same type of dude. He's got to go to Harrenhal to get out there. So that's my piece on that. I obviously think ultimately in the show's canon, he still will be one of the most loyal individuals in Rhaenyra's camp and that interacts with her. It's just twists and turns of the show's going on. Since we have a week in between episodes, we kind of have to are left on a cliffhanger of where they're going to be at. So you all let me know what you think down below. Do you think Damon's... I know they're not going to do this. That'd be too extreme of a break for canon, but they're making it seem like Damon may do something to maybe betray Rhaenyra to try to put his claim forth or something. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm positive that'd be too big of a break from canon. Then obviously I've talked about this before, but the next thing I want to discuss is Kristen being made hand in that book line. Like he literally, Aegon, you friggin' rock, dude. He goes, my new hand is a steel fist. And then also there's another book line that I kind of glazed over, but after having watched it and listened to it again, right? Aegon, just before that, says, I want you to spill blood, not ink, grandfather. Like he says it to Otto. That is a line also directly from the books. This episode is a 900 million out of a 10. I loved it so much. Real quick, another thing I want to discuss before I get out of here. This will be the last thing in this video. Aemond, you need a chicken sandwich. Just kidding. That whole scene with Aemond discussing his deepest and darkest, most inner secrets to some whore is going to come back and betray him. The woman, Madame Sylvie, I think is going to play the role of this character who basically she has a son named Gaiman Palehair, and it's kind of already been confirmed that Aegon has probably slept with this whore, right, or someone in her whorehouse, because Aemon has said that Aegon took him to this whorehouse, right? So there's probably a bastard that's going to be brought up, and what happens in canon is once Rhaenyra starts to lose the city, several different kings and rulers position themselves on different hills in King's Landing, right? And one of them is Gaiman Palehair. He's said to be a bastard son of Aegon II, who at this time everyone thinks is dead, but he's not, right? So he starts issuing forced edicts, and that woman, Madame Sylvie, I think is going to play the role of his mother in the books. But it's definitely put in there for a reason, because she's obviously already manipulating him, so to speak, because she's like, when you get mad, the only one who gets hurt is the small folk, and I'm like the small folk, and don't you love me? Like, she's kind of saying that, right? But also he's telling her things that can definitely be used against him, so I think that's for sure going to come up in the future. Thank you all so much for watching this. I know this video is under 15 minutes, but like I said, I went hard. I went 3 hours last night. Please go watch that. Slap a like on this video. Like was going to be 420 if you liked it, and please subscribe to me here on YouTube. Shout out to my Patreon family, specifically my executive producers. They are Breanne Johnson, Destiny McQueen, Phillips 420, Pebbles 83, and the North Must Remember. Along that, as a